Morning.
One more second. All set.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee meeting, Tompkins County Legislature, Thursday, October 17th. And we'll call the meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? None that we know. Is there public comment? I don't see anybody on the screen. No blue cards. Okay. Chair's report. I don't have anything to add beyond the agenda today. Go right to the county administrator.
Good morning. I don't have much to report. My main items that I would update the committee on have to do with the very quick turnaround time that we're working on for the renovations to the Key Bank building for the operations for the Code Blue shelter. My hats off to Arel for the juggling of the multiple projects that he's in the midst of working on to work on this tight deadline and get things happening there. The fire alarm panel is almost complete, and the general contracting work looks like it will be starting next week. They're on a timeline for shooting for completion by Monday, November 4th. There's been a great interdepartmental team that's been working on this, so we're with county administration, ITS, DSS, Department of Emergency Response, on all of the other pieces of this around staff training and health and safety and so forth. So I just came from that meeting and wanted to just extend my compliments to all of the staff that are working together on this very tight timeline. And the other thing to note for facilities is that simultaneous to this, they are in the midst of the public safety building renovations at the jail, where we have some board outs there to enable that work to proceed in the kitchen and the dorm areas, as well as renovations occurring up at the Department of Emergency Response in the call center. So the staff at the Department of Emergency Response are now working out of the backup dispatch center while those renovations are taking place. So Arel is juggling the contractors between these three projects that are happening simultaneously. That's all I have to report.
Mike?
Just that I mentioned to Lisa that this morning I had my ear burned by one of the attorneys on Tauga Street, not happy at all about the temporary use of the Key Bank building, and wanted to see it torn down.
And to that point, we had reached out to our neighbors and businesses that we had contact information for around, kind of a 1-block radius to make them aware of the county's plans and timeline and so forth, and understanding that there are concerns, and we're going to do our best to address them and keep operations going, keep them safe.
The other night at the full legislature meeting, it was mentioned that some fencing and different ideas were part of the discussion.
Yes.
It's a good thing we filled the project manager position this year. Arel would really be pulling his hair out. So I've mentioned before about lighting. So Tuesday night I walked around out there. Is there, I assume, additional lighting's coming?
Yes.
Okay.
They have facilities. Arel has kind of done an inventory and looked at what we have, what needs to be upgraded, where new lighting needs to be installed, as well as security cameras.
And I see that they removed some bushes and some other things, which is good. I mean, just don't want to have a place where people can hang out. I am concerned around the Boardman House and into DeWitt Park. A lot of bushes that are overgrown and nobody's maintaining those. I think it'd be, I'm not sure who's, I think it's the city's responsibility to do that. They may want to be contacted to have them look at that stuff. But I also noticed the lighting right by the professional building, between the professional building and the courthouse. It's pretty dark back in there, really. And I think that, I'm not sure if there's any lighting planned there, but I just feel that that could be improved. So I want to share that.
Yeah, I'll mention it to Arel. I know that he was looking at the complex as a whole and was taking that into account. I can't speak specifically to the areas, but I know that I'll mention it to him.
Thank you.
Susan?
I just wanted to say a special thank you to Arel and Facilities, because I know they are booked solidly and they have to deal with whatever comes up immediately for departments and agencies. So I really appreciate the extra effort to get this done. I wanted to say thank you. And the second thing is I too have heard concerns, not overwhelming number, but there are concerns about the shelter being there, and then some of the activity at the Ithaca, the Asteri property. I'm hearing concerns about both of those, but I think everyone's doing as much as they can at this point, so.
Yeah, front page this morning with the Asteri from the incident, yeah. Just to let you know, I had an opportunity to go up to the backup 911 center last week, and they did a nice job with those renovations. I wish I could have had a backup center like that a few years ago. So
I'll bet you do.
Cornell really stepped to the plate on that to help the county get situated, and it makes a good facility for both to use for their backups. Let me back up on the chair's report. Katrina brought it to my attention that the last meeting of full legislature meeting is the 17th of December. And our regular facilities meeting would be afterwards. And she wanted to offer us the opportunity to reschedule ahead of that last meeting in case there's some end of year business that we want to get in there. That said, the one date that appears to be open, one only date is Monday the 16th at 9 a.m. That work for committee? I can usually make a Monday morning work.
For me.
That look for you, Mike?
I think it'd work.
Why don't we go with that then?
I will email Mr. Mezey after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Got an appointment for TCAT, a resolution for appointment to Tompkins County Consolidated Area Transit Board of Directors, ID number 12781, and this would be for Shauna Black. Do we have a motion? Moved by Susan, second by Randy. Any discussion on the appointment? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Drew is with us this morning. Got a number of resolutions to bring forward from the Finance Department. Getting ready to do some bonds, I guess.
These are the typical resolutions that we do each fall as we prepare for bonding. We typically do our bonding middle end of February. We seem to be getting the best rates about that time of year. As you recall, the last couple of years, we've just timed it perfectly. And, you know, it's tough to do because it's a 4 to 5 month process. So these have to be approved before we do the initial prospectus and things like that. So as you go through them, if you have any questions, let me know.
I have a general question. Actually, no, go through them one at a time. It applies to one.
Okay. So why don't we do that? We'll go down through these, and if anybody has a question, please feel free to raise. Resolution A of Tompkins County, New York, declaring official intent to reimburse an original expenditure with the proceeds of tax-exempt indebtedness in accordance with Treasury Regulation Section 1.150-2. And this is ID number 12788. Do we have a motion? Susan. Second. Mike. Any discussion? Randy.
Yeah, why are we doing this now? I mean, my thought is, I mean, we haven't approved any of this money, and we're not looking to spend this money for about 2 years, and we have $9 million set aside for this particular project. That would equate to over $800 per square foot to $40 million. So I'm just curious why we're doing it now, because you wouldn't go out to bond it next year, would you?
It depends on the timing of the design and, you know, any of the expenses we incur now, we could not use bond proceeds to pay for unless we had a resolution like this. It doesn't commit us to doing bonding for these expenditures, but it allows us to. So say we delay the project for 4 or 5 years and the price doubles, then we'll have any expenditures that we've spent from this point forward, we can go ahead and bond for those expenditures.
The reason I'm asking, because if I remember correctly, I'm not remembering the numbers, that I thought in 2025, we estimated we're going to spend less than $1 million for design and all those kinds of things. So that would mean that the true money doesn't really get spent till 27, and if I understand correctly. So it doesn't seem to me that we need to do this now, because we've got it in our budget. We have money set aside. So I'm just curious why we're, and the same would go with the jail. The jail's even farther out. So I'm just not curious why we're doing this now. Because I hope we don't go out to bond this next year. We don't need to. We have the money, we're not going to spend it. It would be an expense that we don't need to incur.
That's the intent, and you know, a lot of times we'll look at the project as a whole. We wouldn't be able to do that without this resolution. We'd have to look at it from the point of that resolution forward. And since we only tend to do bonding once a year, which saves the county quite a bit in expenditures and quite a bit in time, every time we bond, we have a fiscal advisor that costs money. We have a bond attorney that costs money. So by doing one bonding each year, it helps us quite a bit. And this just sets us up to capture those expenditures, and then we can do the whole project at that time. It does not commit us to anything, though.
I get that. I appreciate that you guys are focused on doing it once a year. It makes a lot of sense to me. So I do appreciate that. So if we approve this, and we are saying, you know, for this particular one, go out and bond this $40 million, would you actually do that in 2025?
No, we would not. No. So we would not bond it until we brought bond resolutions to the legislature.
So this is just a process thing. So it means that maybe in February of 2026, you may go to the bonding.
Right.
But we haven't even come up with an estimate of dollars. We haven't approved the money. I mean, it just seems to me like it's premature. So.
It is a process thing. You're absolutely right. It is a process thing, and this would mean even if you said, okay, based on the timeline, we aren't going to go over that first $9 million until 2027 or 2028, and we decided to do a ban until the project's done and then do a bond at the end of that project. This is more of a project process standpoint that we can then go back to day one and say, okay, from this period forward, we can capture those expenditures in the bond.
Such as the planning and project management.
Yep.
Mike?
Drew, aren't these resolutions also required by the IRS code in order to prove that they're going to be tax exempt?
Yes. So that's what's happened is, thank you for that, because I had an education when we had met with bond counsel that apparently there's been some governments 5-10 years ago that said, oh, we renovated the old courthouse building 20 years ago, but that was I don't know how many $1 million of the renovation was. So, we want to issue $2 million of bonds against that, even though the project was 15, 20 years old or more. And the IRS said, no, wait a second, you're using that for operating funds. That's not a tax exempt purchase, but we're giving you tax exempt. Because you got to realize all the interest we pay to the bondholders, the IRS is missing out on the income tax on that. So this is really a resolution, and they tightened up the regulations, and this is part of it, to say, okay, before you spend the first dollar, you have to tell us that's your intent. Otherwise, you can only bond from the point of 30 days prior to the passing of a resolution. So.
So if we approve this, before you would actually go out to bond, that would have to go before the full legislature?
Correct.
And they have to vote on that?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
That'd be a new bond resolution.
Any further questions with regard to the first resolution? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Randy? So noted. Resolution B, resolution of the County of Tompkins, New York, declaring official intent to reimburse an original expenditure with the proceeds of tax-exempt indebtedness in accordance with Treasury Regulation Section 1.150-2 for the Public Safety Building, ID number 12789. Is there a motion? Mike, second. Randy, discussion.
I have one last question. So how much notice do we need to give to the IRS?
You can only cover expenditures for 30 days prior to the passing of a resolution. So say a rel had a great opportunity, say we bid it out, a new public safety or a new wing or whatever the legislature decides to proceed with at that facility, and we get a great contract and they want $1 million up front. And if that happens 35 days prior to the legislature meeting and passing that resolution, we cannot issue a bond. We can't include that in the bond proceeds. It would have to come out of whatever funds we have available at that time. But again, this would come before you as a bond resolution at least a couple months before we issued any bonds. And just because we do a bond resolution for an amount, it doesn't mean that's what the final amount is. We typically work with county administration and the department involved and figure out what the bond has to be. So if you may approve, 1.5 million for a road project, but Jeff decides I can deal with 1.2 million based on bids, we'll only issue the bonds for the 1.2.
Further questions? What does this do as far as a ban goes?
This allows us to do either, and keep it tax exempt.
Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? No, one. Randy? Resolution bond authorizing issuance of up to $1.2 million in serial bonds and notes of the County of Tompkins, New York, to pay a portion of the cost of road and highway system reconstruction and improvements at various locations throughout the county. ID 12790. Is there a motion? Mike, second. Susan. And we've talked about the 1.2. Jeff's here with us. Is there any questions in particular to this resolution? Randy?
Yes, is this the only ban we're going to do, or are there other ones in the queue?
I believe we have 2 renewals of bans for projects in process. Do you know, Jeff, offhand?
I wouldn't.
Needs a microphone.
Yeah. So this is actually a bond versus a ban, but we do have a couple bans out there for a couple bridge projects. And bridge projects, we typically get most of it funded, if not all of it funded. So we don't have to bond those in many cases.
Okay, and Jeff, could you just come up here and remind us what this is for?
Good morning. This is the second year of the third portion of the bond maintenance funding for county roads. It was a 15-year plan. It started at 1.2, it went to 1.8, now we're at 2.4. This year was the first year, the 2.4, next year is the second year. That's what we're talking about here. The decision has been made to look for 1.2 in bond funding, and then the remainder 1.2 is going to be made up using other sources. This is what we pave our roads with in addition to CHIPS state funding.
Okay, and how long would we typically bond this particular expense for?
These, we were looking at 10 years. It depends on the road service and all that. There are requirements that does not allow you to bond beyond what they determine the useful life, depending on the type of pavement.
I know you provided a report, I think it was the last meeting, on the quality of the pavement in the county, and it's improved quite a bit over the last 5 years or more.
Continue to, yeah.
Right. And is that the result of this? And is 10 years a good number for useful life for
It's
roads?
a typical useful life number for paved roads, yes. And this is the absolute reason that our roads are improving. The CHIPS funding wouldn't be providing the steady increase on average quality of all of our roads.
I know the answer to some of these questions, but people that may be watching, although I think not more than 30 or 40 people will actually watch this meeting, but they wouldn't know what any of this means unless they're listening, so that's why I asked the questions.
No problem. Happy to answer.
Thanks, Randy. Further questions? Okay, all in favor of Resolution C? Unanimous? Thank you. Resolution D, resolution of the County of Tompkins, New York, declaring official intent to reimburse an original expenditure with the proceeds of tax-exempt indebtedness in accordance with Treasury Section 1.150-2. This is ID number 12791, and I think the amount on that is $8.2 million. Any questions? Well, let's see if there's a motion. Mike, Susan, moved and seconded. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
So this is for the new homeless shelter, and the reason we're asking for action, if you're looking at the second whereas, there's one too many zeros in the 8,002,000.
Correct, thank you.
Up a zero there. But this is the total project cost because we don't know if we're going to get funding from the other governments yet. Okay, thank you.
You reported on that Tuesday night briefly. I think we touched on it with the budget, and we were looking at a worst-case scenario for the county of a $2 million share potentially, and we've set aside $500,000. Was that where we ended up?
Oh, for the bond?
Yeah. 2025. $1 million in reserve.
Yes, we have $1 million in, well, and that's out of the overall capital reserve. So we already have set aside $1 million from that for this project for the acquisition of property.
And we're hopeful that we may see a higher state percentage of this 8.2 million estimated cost.
Oh, absolutely. That's the worst case, and that's the overall projected cost of the project at this point.
Randy?
On this particular project, an email was sent out talking about the people that are looking at the design of this new facility. Are people going out and looking at other facilities to see that have been built by other people to see what's good and bad, or is that going to be the responsibility of the architect engineer, or so who's discussing how this is going to look and what kind of things are they looking at?
So we're right now in conversations and negotiation with a firm to help us with this, and the firm has architects who specialize in building these sorts of projects. Their preference is to work with a shelter operator who would also be on the team and be informing decision-making based on how they want to operate and program the shelter. We, as of yet, do not have a shelter operator, and it's something that we're talking about, and we're talking about issuing another RFP specifically for a shelter operator to participate in the design and construction process with us, and then ultimately operate a shelter. So that's something that is in the works, something more to be discussed.
Great, thank you very much.
Further questions? Thanks for the update and clarifications on that, Lisa. All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. And let's go to Resolution E, a bond resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $5,158,500 in serial bonds and notes of the County of Tompkins, New York, to pay a portion of the cost of reconstructing Falls Road Bridge located within the county, ID number 12794. Is there a motion? Randy, second. Susan? Anything on this, Mike?
For Jeff, if I could, please. Jeff, is this totally our expense, or where's all the money going to come from, we hope?
This was a Bridge New York grant award.
The one to Trumansburg or whatever?
Yeah, it's uphill, upstream from Teganic Falls. Our portion will be 5% of the total project cost.
Thank you.
We put out the funding and then are reimbursed.
Correct.
So that explains why we need to borrow the money to do that.
Yeah.
Potentially.
This project I think we ask for, this is new, so we don't do this that often, and I believe that we're asking for the full amount in the form of bonding. But I think as it's broken out over the years, historically we've asked for bands, what we need the next year, so we do it that way. And then during the, as the project gets rolling, we actually start getting reimbursements and things. And in the end, there'll be a small portion, that local share, and then the decision is typically made this is to create cash flow, and then the decision is typically made on the balance of how we want to pay for that last piece, either through a long-term bond or with local cash.
Randy?
This is reimbursements that we get back from the federal and state after the bridge is done, or as you?
As it's progressing, we do get reimbursed. We can, at certain points during the project, we begin a reimbursement process within house to go through DOT channels to start receiving funding back in. We don't wait till all the way to the end to receive funding.
So this question for Drew. So if we bond this money and then we get reimbursed, can we pay it off early? Or, I'm a little confused on how the bonding works for this if we're getting 95% of the money back.
As Jeff said, typically we do issue these in bands before we do the final bond. And we determine at the end of the project how much is a bond. So the bands can be paid off each year, or you can continue bands up to 3 years before you start paying on them, and then 2 more years that you pay down on them before you have to either pay them off or bond them. So.
Okay, thank you.
You'll have a question raised by legislators on that side of the, in that proximity to it. What's your timeline are you looking at?
We are waiting to receive a call from DOT. We received a letter. They said in a short period of time, you'll receive a call. We'll get a kind of a get start meeting set up. We're not really waiting for that. We're not sitting back. We are in the early stages of setting up meetings to determine a consultant for that. Anyone that's may be familiar with the process, we in Tompkins County select consultants through a local design services agreement. It's a statewide, but broken up by regions. You can either pick from a list of 5 consultants or a list of 15. Tompkins County chooses the 5. For this project, we're choosing to have all 5 consultants come in and do a presentation. We do a scoring that's a typical standard scoring based on that presentation. And then from that, it's a collective effort through the department where we are planning to ask DEC Fred Bond if he has a representative or himself would like to be part of that. F&I committee members would also be invited if they were interested. Like again, there'll be 5 1-hour presentations broken up over a couple weeks. But from that result, we'll select a consultant, and you'll see that also come to F&I for approval and discussion at that time. That would be the very first step. Once you generate state-local agreements with DOT for both the consultant piece and any other phases that we decide to do at that time, that state-local agreement would also come here, and you'll see all these numbers again. This is the very, very beginning stage of what you're going to see for the next 5 years of this project moving forward through design, all the different phases of design within that big, long process, and then also the construction piece. It is, I think, construction in 27.
I was going to say a couple of years of the planning and design and coordinating, and then the actual construction, kind of like some of the others. Oh, hi, I got a question raised. Fernando Aragon.
Hi, good morning. Just thought I'd add a detail that maybe help answer your question. I just received yesterday from DOT a schedule for this project. We're going to be adding it to our transportation improvement program, and it has construction to be obligated in September of 2027, which
28 then.
probably means, you know, construction in the construction season of 28. Although Jeff may correct me on that, and I don't know if Jeff has seen the schedule yet, but we just got it ourselves.
Thanks, Fernando. You mentioned Fred Bond from the state parks.
State parks.
So coordination levels there with Teganic.
We talked to them. I talked to Fred on the phone when we were applying for the project. They submitted a letter of support for the funding of this project, so they're very involved, very interested. They have other projects in the area, and it'd be great to kind of tie them all together so they coordinate, you know, sidewalk types, anything like that that was, you know, ancillary to the bridge project that we could kind of coordinate and meet up with their projects where it makes sense.
Thanks. Any further questions? I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thanks. And we've got one more resolution F. bond resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $1.7 million in serial bonds and notes for the County of Tompkins, New York, to acquire certain machinery and apparatus for construction and maintenance, ID number 12793. Is there a motion? Randy, second, Mike. And we did hear a little bit about this at prior meetings, what you were looking at.
This would be the third year of moving to a capital funding source for our equipment for our department. The last 2 years, we have a 5-year equipment plan. At that time, 3 years ago, we traditionally in our highway machinery account, we had $424,000 in our account. We had since lost that for this capital plan. We thought we could stay in a better place, keeping within the 5-year plan and what we needed each year. Nick Ensign did a great job working through all the process of estimating of values, additional increases in what we felt cost for different pieces of equipment. The first 2 years, our requests were 1.3, 1.4 million. Those were both reduced to 1 million. We then this year wanted to try and make it up, so that's why we had a 5-year plan averaging 1.3, 1.4 million. To try and make up some of that, we went to 1.7 for this year. I know that, and to be fair, we were provided some ARP funding late this year. One unit we have, we're waiting on the vacuum truck. We've already received the bulldozer. Those are ARP funding that we had planned for next year. So and it was about 360,000, I think. I'm really kind of guessing at numbers. So I had thought that any request going forward would have been reduced. To be fair, we've already received some of the money for next year in that ARP form. So the 1.7 could be reduced. What through different inquiries, even seeing this on here, is that we have to get this in as part of the process, and then it's not necessarily going to get funded or move forward, is what I've been told and informed on. I was glad to see it here, but then I had the wind taken out of our sails a little there. So if the funding were to move forward, that would be great. We could use the full amount. If it were reduced some, it's whatever the county can afford, obviously. There is a really critical piece within that I've talked with Lisa about, and if for some reason we can't fund this way, I will go into early next year looking for funding, and that has to do with the organization and the long-range plan of getting vehicles and dump trucks and plow trucks. And there's such a long delay. We have already ordered 2 trucks that are due in July of next year. And then so in order to order those 2 trucks, we took the cost, instead of buying 1 truck, we took the relatively same cost to add it to buy the 2 trucks to get them coming. And then we included in 2025 the upfit cost, which is equal. It's about half the price of the truck. So rather than buy 1 truck and get it ready, because of the long delay, we bought 2 trucks, cab and chassis, and then we have the upfit scheduled for July of 25. And should that money at the tune of about 300,000, I'm not sure the exact number, we would be looking for that funding next year. It's critical. Otherwise, a couple things, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but we would lose our place in line with the upfitter, which is the plow equipment in the box. And so that, I don't know the full impact, but we'd at least have to wait all of next year. The trucks would be delivered in July, and they would just sit there until we were able to get them upfitted and ready for road use. That's all. Thank you.
Lisa, you got a hand up.
My hand up. Jeff was referring to wind taken out of his sails, and I may have to. So I was just having a sidebar conversation with Drew. So I believe that the 1.7 was not included in the 2025 budget. The cost of the bond for this was not included. We have been having conversations with Jeff about the need for the critical upfit, and we're trying to make that work. But there was at one point in the process where we were going to bond this and not the road maintenance program. And after consultation with Jeff, he identified the road maintenance program as the critical piece to proceed with. And we have been, since then trying to piece together what the needs of the department for the machinery, using the ARPA funds, and trying to get this upfit piece taken care of. So I think we need to go back in conference about whether this was intended for the 2025 budget or not. I don't believe that it was, or if so, it might be at an adjusted amount. So,
At least if you got to order some things, it allows you to start borrowing money or putting it toward the project, whatever.
but I think this would actually, this resolution would put in place the borrowing of the money. It's not the enabling of the borrowing. Is that correct?
We could not go out to bond for it if we determine that when we start issuing the bonds.
So maybe if we want to, we could ask the committee to consider this, and if there is an adjustment that's needed to it prior to the full legislature consideration, we could bring that forward. Maybe that's the most efficient way to proceed.
Is that acceptable to the committee?
I see Fernando's hand's still up.
Well, Fernando, your hand's still up. Was that left over from the prior discussion?
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. I'll bring it then.
Just checking with. Randy?
So isn't there a highway machinery fund that's money set aside, and isn't there like $1.7 million in that account now? And maybe I'm off on the numbers, but yeah, I'm going by memory, and that's not good in the morning. But what is that money set aside for?
For this purpose, and I believe that we have maximized that fund.
Would that be the fund that is a result of extra funds each year that go, it's like I call it a reserve, although it's not called a reserve.
Yes.
And that would be then the highway machinery. Right, so that's created, that is the fund that we, back in the day when we had the 424,000 every year, quite often we would look for one-time OTRs, and we would balance that out on how much was left in that fund.
But at least you're saying in the 2025 budget, we use that money?
Yes, we're maximizing all of those one-time pots of money for the road maintenance program and for the highway machinery.
Thank you.
So there'll be some discussion, and we don't meet until the 7th of November.
Yep.
So we may see an adjustment there.
Yes.
Okay. Further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Lee, I just wanted to point out that these resolutions went through F&I. This is F&I, went through BCP.
So it will move to the next full legislature agenda now, having gone through both committees. Thanks, Mike. Any further questions on the bond resolutions? If not, well, as long as you're up here with us, Jeff, we'll go to a Highway Department report. I know you're talking about the amount of time it takes to order equipment now. I was involved in ordering an ambulance. It used to be a 6-month process. We're 2+ years out, and we've actually had to extend the life of that equipment. And they're saying that's common with any of the heavy equipment and trucks now.
It seems to be statewide, nationwide, the manufacturers, it's everything for very, a lot of different reasons. What we're also seeing is price increases, bids locked in, pay orders are in place, contracts are signed, and then as the process develops, there is some language in there to allow it, and we're seeing price increases like midstream, which is very unusual, $10,000, like above what you're already paying. It really kind of shocks you. But it's typical, and it's across the state.
Yeah, we bought one 2 years ago for $159,000. The bids come back at $209,000 2 years later, and there's an asterisk there about the chassis, and it could go higher in that 2 year period. So, and I can't imagine moving out to the price range of the equipment that your department is buying.
Yeah, our plow trucks are breaking the $300,000 range of cost right now.
What were they 5 years ago?
240, 220, 225. Yeah, we kind of held at the 250 range for quite a few years, and now it just seems to. I just asked Nick the other day, I'm like, are we hitting 300? Because I'm hearing other towns are in that
30 to 40%.
area. Yeah.
The number I've heard.
And you're looking at a 2 year delivery pattern when you place the order to actually receive the vehicle. 24 months, or, yeah.
I would just say that the trouble in inflationary times, and we saw it back when we had inflation a lot of years ago, is that everyone wants a bite, and so you end up really gouging because of the multiplying effect.
It's a good thing inflation is transitory.
Yes.
Not transitory fast enough.
I'm facetious on that, by the way.
Anyways, they stopped you there with the stories.
No, I'm good. What we have today is the capital payment summary. This is, if you have any questions on it, just shows our, different payments out to consultants on the various projects that we have in the hopper at the time. Let me know if there's any questions. Otherwise, next is the Capital Highway Capital Status Report. This is for information only, but I'm happy to go through it quickly if you would like.
Highlights?
Highlights, so everybody's aware, and I think it feels like I haven't said this in a while. I hope that I did say this earlier in the year, but if you look through this and you see anything in red, that's new from last month. I was reviewing this morning, and I didn't see a lot of red. I do have a couple small things, and I'll just kind of leaf through it and let you know where we're at. You'll see red on the Station Road in Danby. The stream stabilization project portion of the project is complete. We were able to set the 2 box culverts last year. That project is complete. We're waiting on, this was a W-QIP water quality through DEC project. It didn't cover the full cost of the project, but it did help greatly. It certainly got it through some early stages, and we should be receiving reimbursement on that very soon. The Bostwick DPW, those are improvements. We've been working on our bins that we hold all of our stores in the back. We have plans to do some area paving to keep dust control down. Podunk Road is in kind of a cultural.
Just for your information, mine doesn't show any red.
It's only on the first page. If it doesn't show red, it's the same as last quarter. The red is the only red that I've saw through my conversation was on packet page 20, and it was at the bottom on Station Road. It was stream stabilization complete. There's not going to be a lot of red, and it
didn't come out red on.
Oh, it
mine.
must be not. Is it not color? Is the picture not color?
Nope.
That's why.
It is electronically.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just bring it up then, I guess. Sorry about that. That was something we started a while ago. It really helped greatly looking through this for a lot of people to see like kind of the progress and what changed on individual projects. I'll raise awareness if I see red in any of the future. I haven't seen anything since then. Just kind of bringing everybody up to speed. The Fall Creek Road, that's the triple box that is working through. That's in cultural resources and environmental, and beginning of the right-of-way process, although there shouldn't be a lot on that one because it's a rehab. Bridge New York projects, the culvert projects, the one on Pruville Road is opening very soon, if not open already.
It's open.
It's open, yeah. Like I got the note that it was open, but I couldn't remember the date and I didn't want to be wrong. I'd rather say it was closed than open already.
I was pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
about a week ago.
Yeah, the EIC did send me an email when he gave me a date, but I couldn't picture what that said to be sure. That's good. That completes that portion, at least the construction piece of all those culverts that we were awarded through Bridge New York a number of years ago. I will sure be hearing from the DOT.
Originally it was 6. How many did we end up with? 4?
We did 4. One was pulled earlier because of right-of-way, and that was because of some of the small takings. Really couldn't find anyone, and it was an estate, and it had been years, and they couldn't locate any proper owners. It would have delayed all the other 5. And then when the bids were brought forward, the one project on Conlin Road was extremely expensive, and we were gonna have to pay a lot more money to keep all 5 in the hopper. We pulled Conlin out. We are progressing Conlin in-house, looking to do that next year. And actually, that's one area that the pavement bond money, that's also goes to those type of projects. And that'll complete the 5. The one on Connington that we did not do, we're monitoring. It's a heavy old iron boilerplate culvert pipe. It will need attention sometime, but it was nowhere near the condition of the other 5. Again, just for the record, if you recall, when this project started, we had to front our portion, and knowing that they were only doing 4, so that portion of that 5th culvert we actually provided, it's about $325,000 that the state should be coming back to us, and that would be if there were, which there shouldn't have been because I monitored these projects closely, if there were any kind of overruns or unknowns during the project. I think they all went pretty smooth. I wasn't notified of any really consequential increase in cost. Had that happened, that would have reduced our reimbursement of that. But anyway, we paid the state more than we should be getting some of that back. I think it's about $325,000. I will be following up with them and reporting that out. Bridge New York Midline Road is in right-of-way. Cortlandt Street Bridge, we are trying to get the bid out for that project, hopefully to be constructed next year, working through Finance Department with the help of Drew. That's end of what I had. I know Weights and Measures is waiting to talk about a resolution to follow up after myself.
It's always great when none of us are seeing red, Jeff.
Well, red is bad color, I guess.
Jeff, I just wondered about Bridge New York for this year. Is that, do we have bridges proposed, and do we know when they're going to announce?
The last round of Bridge New York consolidated 2 years. It was going to be the last round of a 5-year program of Bridge New York that was funded through Albany. We are partnering with everyone in the state to advocate to work towards a continuation of that program. At this time, the money that was allocated to Bridge New York was in the program, has been put out across the state to all the bridges for the 5-year program. They took the last 2 years and they put them together in this last round.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Jeff? Okay. And Weights and Measures, you've got a report for us.
Yep.
Or,
Heather, are you there?
Yep. Good morning, I'm here.
Okay.
I think there's a corrective action plan. Weights and Measures is falling under the Highway Department as of this year. And Heather has been appointed. And do you want to give us a little report, Heather, and explain the item resolution that's before us?
Sure.
Should we put that
I
on,
just-
should I put that on the agenda? Or, okay, let me put that on the floor first. We have a resolution, adoption of corrective action plan for weights and measures, ID number 12809, moved by Randy, second by Susan. Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Heather, but
No, that's okay.
go ahead.
Yes, I basically had, so we had the audit. They did send out the findings from the audit. They had 3 recommendations for us. And they are actually, have already been put in place. And we are following the new implementations.
Who's your auditing agency, just for the record?
It was the Office of the State Comptroller.
And
And again,
it,
this
yep.
was prior to when I started this position. And once I had taken the new position, I had started actually implementing these prior to the audit.
Just for the record, it falls under the title of Consumer Protection, Accuracy of Weights and Measures. So audit through the New York State Comptroller's Office. Fairly straightforward plan of action from what I can see, and you've accomplished it just in the quite a few things here in the reorganization of the department and appointment of new staff. Any questions?
Yep, that's correct.
Questions for Heather? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your work, Heather, and bringing things forward, and Jeff for hosting the operations.
Yeah, no, it's going really well.
problem.
Heather's
Thank
doing
you.
a great job. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Jeff and the highway folks for attending to a constituent, not of my district, but who approached me about an issue related to pavement in his driveway or whatever. And they quickly looked at it and fixed it. And it was on the schedule, but, you know, some people were impatient and whatnot. So thank you for that. I also had a question from, and also there's a recent event in Newfield. So I go around and ask people, what's the most important issue for you with the county? And roads was number 1, right? So which is good.
I agree.
But it turns out of those 10 people, only one of those roads was a county road. The rest of them were different roads. But the issue came down to speed limits, and it was on Trumbull's Corners Road. There's a lot of blind spots on Trumbull's Corners Road, and it's not the first time somebody's approached me on that one. And so she goes, well, how do you change the speed limit? And I said, I think you need to go through the town to even start that process. So I just want to make sure when I responded, that's correct.
That's correct. The process starts at the town level. The town board will pass a resolution and a request that comes to the county, and then the county submits it to the state. And it is the number 1 concern we hear from all constituents across the state on all roads, not just county roads, but everywhere. And, the answer is in part, working to reduce the speed limit to what it should be. But then I always say you have to look at enforcement, and that's what's going to get people to slow down.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Mike?
I'm glad you brought this up because, we hear a lot about issues of people like homelessness that we have and things like that, and how important they are, and they certainly are. It's not unusual for people to say, why are we spending so much money on roads? Why are we spending so much money on the airport? Why are we spending so much money on different kinds of services that everyone takes for granted all the time? But we have to do that, and that's a people thing too. And I just hope we, and I'm sure this group doesn't, but there are folks out there making decisions that have to understand that that is a important and necessary part of what we do.
Thanks, Mike. You're preaching to the choir here on this one, I think.
I think so, but I wanted to say it.
Concur.
Anything further for Jeff? Well, we've got him here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, Terry. Department of Planning and Sustainability. Well, Terry moves up. We've got a resolution acceptance of New York State Energy Research and Development Authority Clean Energy Communities Grant for solar canopies at the Whole Health Department, ID number 12808. Is there a motion to put this on the floor? Mike, second by Susan. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so this is a grant that we've talked about previously. It was awarded to the county on the basis of clean energy actions that the county has taken previously through NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities Program. It was shepherded through by my colleague Haley, who's on vacation right now, so unfortunately couldn't join us. And so the grant itself had to be used for clean energy actions, something that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And when we looked at phase 2 of the Green Facilities Capital Project, we were looking for a project that would be in the realm of this cost. And so something like the Dewar geothermal was just too much money for this grant to cover, and we didn't want to commit the county to that level of funding. So what we came up with was the solar canopy at the health department. So for those of you that are familiar with the health department, there's a row of electric vehicle charging stations that the county uses for our electric vehicles. The canopy would go over that line of parking spaces and would produce quite a bit of electricity. It's a 132 kilowatt solar canopy, so it's a fairly decent sized system. It would be in front of the meter, so the way it would work is it would put power into the grid, not into our building, and then we would be awarded a monetary credit that would go towards paying off the bills, not only at the health department, but amongst our various NYSEG accounts, which is similar to how it works with our Waterloo agreement with the hydroelectric facility there. So this grant we have applied for, we've been awarded it. At this point, we just have to sign the notice to proceed with Johnson Controls, and we can get started on this project. Total project cost is a little over $1.1 million. This grant will cover obviously $825,000 of it, and the remainder is expected to be funded through New York State incentives, so it's New York Sun, and the Federal Inflation Reduction Act funding.
Questions? Randy?
So where would the actual canopy go? Would it be over the parking lot area?
It would go over the parking spaces. I believe what we're looking at right now is a lot of the polling infrastructure being placed on the back line in the grass, and then kind of cantilevered out over the parking spaces. So it'll provide cover for the cars that are parked underneath it, which I think staff will appreciate. And then they'll have lighting underneath it to kind of light up the area a little bit more for those nighttime hours.
So when we have solar panels like this, how do you track how much actual power they generate?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Right now, we have some buildings that have solar panels on them. The technology at that time was a little different than what we have today. For a while, we were able to track it online. At a certain point, the company that we were leasing the panels through, they changed, and they wanted to charge us about $2,000 per solar array to upgrade the software, and just to know how much it was producing just wasn't worth the county's spending that money. So we actually have no idea, other than what we see on the bills, how much those solar panels are producing. With this system, we will be able the ability to track it. And so, we've talked a little bit before about those solar EV charging stations, the EV ARCs that the county has deployed. I have on my computer the ability to pull it up and at any time see how much it's producing, how much has been produced over a certain period of time, how much it's using, that sort of thing. It'll be similar with this solar canopy that we're planning on installing. We'll have software to be able to track it and make sure that it's all producing as it should.
Great, cool. Someday I'll have to come,
Yeah.
you'll have to show me that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike?
I think this is terrific, and you're to be commended for your work on this. We have one of these canopies at the airport. It was put in as part of the airport grant from the state, and the idea was to add more of them. Is there any funding available that we might be able to use for that?
Yeah, actually, Lisa just put me on this email chain. There's some funding from the FAA that's looking towards helping support airports with these sorts of different projects. So we're looking at it, and the airport's looking at doing a new energy management plan, I think, in the upcoming months. We just recently spoke about it. And so we're looking at trying to get some FAA funding to do just that sort of thing. The options at the airport would be to put in the panel, the solar canopy, sort of like we have right now, have it feed into our meters and help offset the bills. Another potential option, because the airport's always looking for revenue, is to lease the land, the parking lots themselves, to allow somebody else to put up solar. We would receive the lease payments, and instead of compensating for the energy bills, we just have to kind of do an analysis to see what would be more beneficial for the county. Is it offsetting the energy bills, or is it leasing the land and having that as a revenue source to support the ongoing airport operations?
Thanks.
Sorry about that. I had a quick question for Jeff before he left. Any further questions for Terry? Let's vote on the motion then. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks to you and Arel for reviewing budgetary numbers on the utilities.
Yeah.
That was a help for us.
No, glad we could help. It always depends on the year, whether it's what it's going to look like. And we're looking at another rate case next year, which won't take place, have an impact until future years. But yeah, it's hard to guess, but we're trying. Well, these projects like the one we just passed here all hopefully in the longer term alleviate some of that stress as time goes on. Yeah, I think that's the big benefit when you have your own generating assets, is that it lowers your payments down. So that's good. Thanks, Terry. Thank you. Anything further for us while you're here? No, I think we're all good. Thank you. We'll move on. Transportation. We have a resolution before us, 12771, increasing 2025 Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council ITCTC Director's salary, ID number 12771. And do we have a motion on it? Mike, second by Randy. Anybody want to touch on that one? Mike, you're active.
I believe this just brings it into, we have to do it separately from our management confidential, but it brings it into the same level as that.
Any questions? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Resolution passes. Do you have anything on transportation for us today, Mike?
The new blinkers working at Lower Creek Road. State put that in, and I think that's an important safety improvement there. Other than that, I don't have anything. ITCTC hasn't met since my last report, but we'll be meeting again here pretty soon. Fernando, I forgot what day.
November 5th. And if I may, thank you for passing that resolution. I just want to say I appreciate, and I think the council appreciates our relationship with Tompkins County as our host agency. And it's one that we've nurtured, and it's very important certainly for the ITCTC to continue to have this type of collaboration. I will say, as far as what's an action item, the long-range plan, the 20-year long-range plan has been in development for the last year and a half, and we're coming to the end of the process. We're in the final public comment period, public comments, and at the end of the month here, and the final draft will be presented to the committees, and we will be seeking final approval in December.
Will you want to address this committee and give us an overview of it at some point?
I'd be happy to, yes.
Okay, why don't we coordinate that? Jordan is nodding her head, and be glad to have you bring that to us. I think that's of interest to all the members here.
In case anybody's interested, the document is in the ITCTC website. We have an update, a long-range plan update page, and the draft document is there and other information.
Mike?
Fernando, any update from the state on the Route 13 work in the city? I had thought that was going to start this year.
Well, that is, you mean the repaving so that?
Yes.
Yeah, DOT has a project to repave Route 13 through the heart of the city, Meadow, Fulton, and adjacent roads with rebuilding of sidewalks and replacing some traffic lights. It's going to be a pretty major effort. I think it's scheduled for construction in 2025, so we'll be seeing some activity at some point in the construction season next year. It's a big project, and it's taken quite a bit to do all the outreach and obviously the design work, and just to get everything in order before shovels hit the ground.
I know at one point they were talking about doing it this year, but I think it got
at this point this year
pushed back.
I mean, they may do some preliminary things, but no, I believe the bulk of the work is going to be next year.
Question from Susan.
Just a comment. Thank you for that update, because there was quite a bit of publicity about this that went out, and I had people asking about it. So it's good to hear that it actually will be in 2025. Will there be updates sent out?
I hope so. With a project of this magnitude, you got to advise people, hopefully well ahead of time.
Thank you.
Plan their travels.
I think they're going to do a lot of construction at night again, too, from what I heard, like they did last time when they brought in the big floodlights.
What, down by Cayuga Medical Center's new building, there's been some changes in the lanes there. Is that a turn lane that's being put in, or do you know, Fernando?
I believe so. As I understand, there's going to be another curb cut into the CMC parking lot.
Right off from 13?
Yeah, I believe right in the alignment of what would be 5th Street. They're not doing a full intersection, but they're going to have like an entrance to the parking.
That would be a help to constituents who have no idea how to get to that building.
Yeah.
You see it
Right
as
now
you
you have
come
to go
down
through all of
through.
these, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything further for Fernando? We'll look forward to seeing you, Fernando, in the next couple of meetings here. I see Arel's with us. Thanks, Randy, for pointing that out. And if we could see if you have anything, Arel, you want to update us on from your department, and downtown facilities is an item number here.
Let's see, I'm actually at the former KeyBank building. I had a meeting at 8 with Lisa and other folks from county administration, DSS, about our progress for the emergency shelter. So that's moving along. You can see behind me, that's the fire alarm panel that we're installing in this building. They should be complete with the installation by tomorrow, and we're getting the system tested and inspected and commissioned next Wednesday. So this was the one project that I thought was going to be behind schedule, but actually they're ahead of schedule, ahead of all the other contractors. Given notice to proceed to the general work contractor to do the other work within the building, removal of the teller space, boarding up the inside windows on the south end, putting exterior metal siding to protect the windows on the south portion of the building, and building an enclosure to the restroom trailer that will be on the west and back portion of the building. And the restroom trailer should be delivered Monday, October the 28th. For that, I heard early in the meeting, but I was involved in another meeting with the Emergency Response Center at 9 about lighting. And so, yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I did a inventory at night of the buildings in this complex and took pictures and then sent email to our electrician. So we're going to add, or around this existing building, Key Bank, it has good lighting, but there are 3 lights that are out. So those will be replaced. The professional building has lights that aren't working, so we're adding additional lights, 1 light on the south wall of the building that faces Key Bank, 1 on the west side that faces kind of the parking towards Building C, and then we're installing a light on the north wall, which faces the main courthouse to improve the lighting here. Also, we may add 1 on the east side or the side of Building C that faces Key Bank. There's 1 light now, but we may install another one. And we are installing a camera on the back side of Building C. That's an area where we've had a lot of folks homeless sleeping back there. So we add a camera and also improve the light on the back side of Building C, where the employee entrance is. And I'm having, the night that I showed up, the lights around the old jail, it was already dark at around 7. They weren't lit, so I've asked them to adjust the time clock there so that they turn on sooner, like 5. It's getting darker sooner. So yeah, so we're looking at the lighting around, and if we need to, after making those improvements with the lighting and see if we need to do more, we will do more there. We will be installing a fence between the Key Bank parking and the parking at the court complex. There's a guardrail, so there'll be a temporary fence there once the emergency code blue shelter goes up. Those of you that may have walked around the front of the courthouse this morning, we are finally, this is for Mike Lane and for Mike Ziegler, the contractor is there to paint the flagpole. We've been waiting, I think, 4 years. The first contractor, didn't show up, so we canceled that contractor. The second one, the owner went through some serious medical issues, and so he's out of the hospital and recuperated, and so they're moving forward with that project. So I wanted to mention that, especially for Mike.
Thank you, Aurel, and thanks for getting it done. I had seen the activity there Tuesday and happened to mention it on at our legislature meeting, and certainly I know you've been trying to get it done, but that pole is very historic. It was put up about 1950. It's the Liberty pole. If anybody hasn't taken a look at the plaque on it, for example, you ought to. And it's our only flagpole that I think the county has in the downtown facilities, isn't it? That's outdoors.
At least in this complex, correct. I mean,
Yep.
we have flagpole over at Human Services Building.
Yeah, but I'm at in the downtown campus here. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So I think it's kind of important.
Yes.
Can I ask something else of Aurel, please? Aurel, at some point, will we be able to see the full cost of these renovations of the Key Bank building for temporary? When you're done, will there be something that shows us how much it costs? I'd be interested in seeing that when that happens.
Yes. Yes, you will. I mean, that's moving along very well. ITS is involved. I mean, many departments, county administration, DSS, obviously, and Mike Stitley and his department as well. So we're going to provide internet or network access to this building. So we're going to putting a switch upstairs so that they can have computers and county phones and security cameras. We're augmenting the security cameras we have at this building. We have one over at Building C that has a good view of the parking area in this building, but we're adding 2 more exterior cameras so we can see the front of the building along Tioga, and then one on the Buffalo Street side, which we don't have any cameras there, and then also a few in the interior of this building. So, I mean, so far the costs are very reasonable. I've been very appreciative of both contractors we're working with that have been basically dropped other projects to do this work for us. And they were only made aware of this about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And that's one of the challenges that we've had is getting contractors to do work. They are so busy. And these are relatively small projects compared to much larger ones that they have up on the hill with Cornell. So very thankful for that. Other projects, you may know that work is going on the North Ithaca Street parking area. INHS has been working there. Once we put Code Blue shelter into operation, the folks that are parking here may not park here anymore. They may want to go over to the North Ithaca Street parking lot. And so the contractors are really parking in our area, even though we've given them an easement. So I've been talking with our maintenance supervisor, Dana, that will notify INHS to tell their contractors that effective 1 week from today that they're going to have to keep, all their vehicles on their side of the fence and not on our side, because otherwise there won't be enough room to park there. The public safety building project, another one, is picked up again about 2 weeks ago. So we are doing work in the kitchen and in the dorms, which is required to board out 30 inmates and to allow us to do the work as quickly as we can, so that those board outs should continue for 2 months. And that work is progressing well. We're basically jackhammered a lot of the floor in the kitchen to install new piping, a new grease trap, putting in new showers in the dorm area, increasing the exhaust fans in that area. So a lot of work occurring, and we held off during the summer because of labor shortages, rather than have force the contractors to work through the summer and extend the duration where we'd have to board out. We said, let's wait until all school work is done over the summer and that we can start up again. So that worked well actually for the sheriff's department. Derek kind of wanted a break because the corrections officers they'd have to bring in rovers to oversee the contractors. So that gave them a break. But now we've geared up about 2 weeks now to the work there. And our estimate is that the work should be completed by the end of this year at the public safety building. Aside from that, we have just other minor projects, nothing significant, but it's going well.
Thanks, Sorrell. Any questions, Randy?
Thanks, Sorrell. Relationships are really important when you have a big project that's in a hurry, like the homeless shelter. So thank you for keeping those relationships going. And it's if you didn't have them, you wouldn't get the work done, right? So.
Correct.
We're scheduled for a downtown facilities meeting on the 12th, but I know you're really busy, November 12th. So if you want to reschedule that, if you don't want to, if you're too busy, I understand that we can reschedule that. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay. All right. I'll let you know well in advance.
Thanks, Sorrell. I know the shelter and the bank building really weren't on your radar a couple of months ago, and I think it speaks to your nimbleness and the ability of your department to react to those fast-changing circumstances and demands, and they are demands. It's something we've got to have done in quick order, so we appreciate the extra effort and taking that on and making it happen.
Thank you. It's been a team effort. Thank you.
Anything further for Rel or downtown facilities? Randy will keep us apprised of the changing agenda or meeting date. Dan Klein did extend the life of the Downtown Facilities Committee out to coincide with end of other committee terms this year. So we'll keep advised on that. Mike?
I just wondered, Randy might know, is the Downtown Facilities Committee intended to be run next year, or is it going to collapse and come back to this committee, or any idea?
I talked to Dan about that and also with Lee, and there were some concerns that it should still be a different, a separate committee, but that decision's not made, and it's going to be the decision of the new chair.
I would hope it would continue. That's what, normally when we build a big building, we've always had a special committee for that.
I kind of extended the same thoughts to Dan when we were discussing it, because didn't realize that the timeline was fixed as to what it was. So, and you're really at a key juncture here, coming up with the hiring of the consultant and beginning that planning process.
Right.
Thanks for mentioning that. Anything further, facilities? If not,
I agree with that recommendation that Mike Lane made. That is true. And this is a very large project, much larger than I think any other that I've been involved in, except for the Human Services Building in '97. And so it makes it easier if we have a committee, a special committee for the construction, well-designed construction, because there are times where we may have to meet more than once a month. And that's what makes it nice to have a separate committee dedicated to a project like this. So if we need answers, we can schedule 2 meetings a month versus waiting a month that could cause delays if we had to go to my program committee, FMI. So I would fully support.
I think there was a special committee for the library project too.
Right.
well, I think you're finally going to overtake the communications capital project in the scope and amount. And we had a special committee that
exactly
met right throughout that process and up through the implementation, in fact.
Right.
Anything further for Rel? Okay, thanks for being with us. Minutes, September 19th. Moved by Randy, second by Susan. Anything to be corrected, discussed? All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved. And budget adjustment and transfer information items are on the agenda. Budget transfer for Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, and an information item, budget adjustment, Highway Department for road striping and software. Any questions on those? Anything further? Mike?
Just for information, I was at the TC3 Board of Trustees meeting last night, and they're moving ahead with the next master plan up there, and they did an RFP for consultant, and they have hired, after, I guess they had 4 submittals, they've hired CNS engineers to be the consultant on the master plan. And they, some of the money that we authorized in our meeting on Tuesday will help toward the expenses of the master plan.
Thanks, Mike. CNS, have we ever heard of them before?
I think so. Of course, they are airport engineers that we've had for many years.
Thanks for bringing that to us. Jordan will keep us posted on the rescheduling of the December meeting, and I guess we'll pencil that in. Any other items this morning? Shall we stand adjourned?